Karen spent the next 18 hours in a state of controlled panic she'd never experienced in 15 years of HOA service. Her dining room table was covered with printouts, architectural reviews, property law statutes, and most damning of all, 3 different articles about Marcus Henderson that painted him as one of the most innovative residential architects of his generation. The emergency committee meeting she'd called for 6 a.m. had been a disaster. Of the 5 members, only 2 had shown up, and both had spent the entire session questioning Karen's judgment rather than debating covenant violations. "You want to tear down a masterpiece because of a paperwork issue?" Jim Garrett had asked, shaking his head. "My wife's already posted pictures on Instagram. She's got 200 likes. This could put our neighborhood on the cultural map," added Rebecca Chen. "Do you know what that could do for property values?" By 7 a.m., Karen was standing alone in her backyard, staring at the treehouse and trying to figure out how she'd become the villain in her own story. The morning light revealed details she'd missed in her initial outrage, the way the structure seemed to breathe with the tree, how the unconventional angles created pockets of shadow and light that transformed throughout the day. Her phone buzzed with a text from her daughter in Portland. "Mom, did you really try to tear down Marcus Henderson's treehouse? It's all over architecture Twitter." Architecture Twitter. Karen didn't even know that was a thing. The sound of vehicles approaching made her look up. A van was pulling into the Hendersons' driveway, followed by a sedan. The demolition crew, right on schedule. Karen found herself walking toward the fence that separated their properties, her feet moving without conscious direction. Marcus was already outside, speaking to the crew leader in low tones. He looked up as she approached. "Mrs. Whitmore, I wasn't sure you'd come to watch. I wanted to." She paused, unsure of what she actually wanted. "I wanted to apologize." Marcus tilted his head. "For what?" "For being so rigid. For not seeing." She gestured helplessly at the treehouse. "For not seeing what it really was." "What is it, really?" The question caught her off guard. She'd expected him to accept her apology and move on, not push for deeper understanding. She looked up at the structure, really looked at it, and tried to put words to the strange pull she'd been feeling since yesterday. "It's like the tree is dreaming," she said finally. "Like you found a way to make its dreams visible." Marcus was quiet for a long moment. "That's the first time anyone's described it that way." "I still think he should have gotten approval," Karen said, but the words lacked their earlier conviction. "You're right, I should have." He nodded to the crew leader, who began unloading equipment. "But I didn't want to risk having someone tell me it was impossible." Karen watched the men setting up their tools and felt something crack inside her chest. "What if I told you there might be a way to make this work?" "What kind of way?" "A variance application. For structures of significant architectural or cultural value." She was making it up as she went along, drawing on half-remembered precedents from other HOAs. "It would require a neighborhood vote. But if the community supports it..." Marcus studied her face. "Why would you do that?" The honest answer was that she didn't know. The practical answer was that she was terrified of being the woman who destroyed something beautiful out of stubborn principle. But there was something else, something harder to articulate. "Because I've spent 3 years enforcing rules, and I forgot to ask whether the rules were worth enforcing." The demolition crew leader approached them. "Mr. Henderson, we're ready to start." Marcus looked at Karen, then at his treehouse, then back at Karen. "Give me an hour," he told the crew leader. "I need to make some calls." As the crew began loading their equipment back into the van, Sarah appeared at the back door. "Everything okay?" "Mrs. Whitmore thinks there might be another way," Marcus said. Sarah's expression shifted from surprise to something that might have been respect. "Is that so?" Karen felt the weight of their attention and realized she was committed now, for better or worse. "I can't promise anything. But I think I've been so focused on protecting what we have that I forgot about what we could become." Karen Whitmore's coffee mug shattered against her kitchen floor as she stared out the window at the monstrosity that had appeared overnight in her neighbor's backyard. A treehouse. Not just any treehouse. A towering, angular structure that looked like it belonged in a modern art museum, not tucked between 2 perfectly manicured lawns in Willow Creek Estates. "This is exactly why we have rules," she muttered, already reaching for her phone. The HOA manual was practically memorized at this point, and Section 4.7 clearly stated that any outdoor structures required prior approval from the Architectural Review Committee. She'd been chairwoman for 3 years, and not once, had anyone submitted plans for something this audacious. The treehouse jutted from an enormous oak tree like a geometric puzzle piece, all clean lines and unexpected angles. Windows that didn't quite match wrapped around corners that shouldn't exist. It was beautiful in a way that made Karen's teeth ache. David, she called to her husband, who was hiding behind his newspaper at the breakfast table. Have you seen what the Hendersons have done? The new people. What about them? They've built some kind of architectural nightmare, without so much as a courtesy call to the committee. David lowered his paper with the expression of a man who'd learned to recognize the early warning signs of his wife's crusades. Karen, maybe we should. Should what? Let them turn our neighborhood into some kind of experimental housing project. She was already scrolling through her contacts, finger hovering over the number for Phil Morrison, the HOA president. We have property values to consider. The truth was, Karen had been watching the Hendersons ever since they'd moved in 6 months ago. They were younger than most residents, had no children, and kept to themselves in a way that felt almost secretive. The husband worked from home doing something with computers, and the wife was an artist who received packages at odd hours. They were exactly the type of people who thought rules didn't apply to them. Phil, it's Karen. We have a situation. 15 minutes later, she was marching across the Hendersons' lawn with Phil in tow, her tablet loaded with photographs and relevant HOA statutes. The morning sun cast long shadows from the treehouse, creating patterns on the grass that looked almost intentional. Mrs. Henderson, Sarah, she thought, appeared at the back door before they could knock. She was younger than Karen had expected, maybe early 30s, with paint-stained fingers and the kind of effortless style that came from not trying too hard. Can I help you? I'm Karen Whitmore, chairwoman of the Architectural Review Committee, Karen announced, her voice carrying the authority of someone who'd spent years perfecting her HOA tone. We need to discuss your unauthorized structure. Sarah's expression shifted from confusion to something sharper. Unauthorized structure. The treehouse, Phil said, gesturing toward the oak. It's quite impressive, but all exterior modifications require committee approval. The application process is really quite simple. My husband designed it, Sarah interrupted. He's an architect. Karen felt a flutter of uncertainty but pushed forward. I'm sure he's very talented, but rules are rules. The structure will need to be removed, or you'll face daily fines until it's brought into compliance. Something flickered across Sarah's face, amusement, maybe, or pity. You should probably talk to my husband. Is he available? He's in his study. But I should mention, he's been getting quite a few calls about the treehouse since photos started circulating online. Karen frowned. What kind of calls? Architecture magazines, mostly. A few documentary filmmakers. Sarah's smile was enigmatic. Apparently, people are very interested in Marcus's work. The name hit Karen like a physical blow. Marcus Henderson. She'd heard that name before, hadn't she? Something nagged at the edge of her memory as she stared up at the treehouse with new eyes, noticing details that had escaped her initial outrage. The precision of the angles, the way the structure seemed to grow organically from the tree itself, the subtle integration of natural and manufactured materials. Marcus Henderson, she repeated slowly. You might know his work, Sarah said, her tone carefully neutral. He designed the Riverside Museum downtown, the one that won all those awards. The tablet slipped from Karen's hands. Her phone buzzed with another text, this one from a number she didn't recognize. Saw the story about the Henderson treehouse. Any chance you'd be interested in discussing other architectural projects for your neighborhood? Stevens Development Group. Karen stared at the message, then at the treehouse, then at the couple who'd unknowingly challenged everything she thought she knew about community leadership. 1 hour, she said, surprising herself with the firmness in her voice. Give me 1 hour to see what's possible. As she walked back toward her house, already mentally composing the emails that would either save or doom her HOA career, Karen realized she had no idea what she was doing. But for the first time in years, that felt like exactly the right place to be. The treehouse watched over them all, casting shadows that seemed to whisper of possibilities not yet imagined. Karen's mind raced as she bent to retrieve her fallen tablet, the screen now spiderwebbed with cracks that seemed to mirror her fracturing composure. The Riverside Museum. She'd been to the grand opening 2 years ago, had marveled at the building that had put this small city on the architectural map, the structure that had been featured in Architectural Digest and won the National Design Award, the same Marcus Henderson who lived next door, who had built what she just called an architectural nightmare. Perhaps, Sarah continued, her voice carrying just a hint of steel beneath the politeness. You'd like to reconsider your position on the, what did you call it? Unauthorized structure. Phil cleared his throat nervously. Mrs. Henderson, I'm sure we can work something out. The committee is always willing to consider retroactive applications. No. Karen's voice cut through his diplomatic retreat. The word surprised even her, but once it was out, she felt the familiar surge of righteous determination that had served her well in countless HOA battles. Rules are rules, regardless of who breaks them. Fame doesn't exempt anyone from community standards. Sarah's eyebrows rose. Fame? Your husband may be accomplished, but this is a residential neighborhood with specific architectural guidelines. Guidelines that exist to protect all of our investments. Karen pulled herself up to her full height, marshalling every ounce of authority she'd cultivated over years of committee service. The structure violates at minimum 3 separate covenants, and I won't be intimidated by celebrity status. The back door opened, and a man emerged, tall, lean, with the kind of casual confidence that came from having his vision validated by the world. Marcus Henderson looked exactly like the photos Karen now remembered from the museum opening coverage, though he was wearing paint-splattered jeans instead of the designer suit from the magazine spreads. Is there a problem? His voice was calm, but Karen caught the edge underneath. Mr. Henderson, I'm Karen Whitmore from the HOA. We need to discuss your treehouse. Marcus glanced up at his creation, then back at Karen with an expression she couldn't quite read. What about it? It's beautiful, Phil interjected quickly, shooting Karen a warning look. Really stunning work. But there's a matter of the approval process, which was bypassed entirely, Karen finished. I don't care if you're Frank Lloyd Wright risen from the dead. This is a community with rules. A silence stretched between them, broken only by the sound of a neighbor's sprinkler system cycling on. Marcus studied Karen with the intensity of someone accustomed to seeing past surfaces, and she felt uncomfortably exposed under his gaze. You know what? Marcus said finally. You're absolutely right. Karen blinked. I'm sorry. Rules are important. Community standards matter. He nodded thoughtfully. I should have followed proper procedures. Phil looked relieved. Wonderful. So if you could just submit the appropriate paperwork. Oh, I'm not submitting anything. Marcus's smile was sharp. I'm having it removed. The words hit Karen like a slap. She'd won. So why did victory taste like ash in her mouth? The New York Times is running a feature on it next week, Sarah added casually. Something about genius interrupted by suburban bureaucracy. They'll be disappointed, but I'm sure they'll find an angle. Karen felt the blood drain from her face. The New York Times? And the Smithsonian wanted to discuss acquisition. Marcus continued, his tone conversational. But you're right, community standards are paramount. Now wait just a minute, Phil started, but Karen was already backing away, her mind spinning with implications she hadn't considered. Property values, yes, but what if the attention was good attention? What if she was about to destroy something that could put their entire neighborhood on the map? I need to review the specific covenants, she said quickly. There might be exceptions for structures of artistic merit. Marcus's laugh was genuinely amused. Artistic merit? 5 minutes ago, it was an architectural nightmare. Heat flooded Karen's cheeks. I may have been hasty in my initial assessment. You were protecting your community, Sarah said, and Karen couldn't tell if she was being mocked or genuinely praised. That's admirable. The committee will need to meet, Karen said, grasping for some semblance of control. This isn't a decision I can make unilaterally. Of course not, Marcus agreed. Though I should mention, my publisher is flying in tomorrow for a photo shoot. Something about a book on innovative residential design. I suppose I'll have to explain why the star feature is being demolished. Karen's tablet felt heavy in her hands as she realized she was standing at the center of a situation that had spiraled far beyond her usual HOA jurisdiction. The treehouse loomed above them,